Hey, it's Emily with DIY Greek, and now I'm going to show you how to use the letter stencil. Most of the stencils will have 3 sizes of a girly font that come in 3, 2, and 1 inches. They'll also have the 3 sizes of the chunky in the same dimensions. There's also going to be a 1-inch dot font and a traditional 1.5 inch. Some of the larger letters like Phi and Omega may not have all of these, but some of the smaller letters will have bonus fonts. When I work with stencils, I like to plan it out on a piece of paper. This is especially important when you work with letters. As I planned out my door hanger, I centered the middle letter. But since the Phi and the Beta are so much bigger, it looked kind of uneven and I didn't like the way it looked. So when I do it on my actual door hanger, I'm going to have to move over my Phi so it's not exactly centered, but I think it'll look better that way. So now I know where to position my gamma. I'm going to start with the first method where I trace the stencil. Once you're done tracing, you're going to take a paintbrush and just paint inside the lines. Now I'm going to use method number 2 to color in my Beta. And this is where you're going to tape down your stencil and just keep the stencil down and paint, but you have to make sure you go from the edges towards the project so that way you have nice clean edges. Otherwise, paint can slip under the stencil. Now that I've finished painting it in, I remove the stencil. On some of the letters you're going to have to connect the lines. Now for the Phi, I'm going to use the third method, which is by far my favorite, and that's using the sponge. So first you're going to tape it down, but you have to be really careful and make sure you use tape and put it in all of the surrounding shapes so that way no paint goes into them. And then you're going to put some paint on your sponge, but this is really important. You have to sponge it off to the side so all the excess paint comes off, and you just want to keep doing it until your sponge is dry and the paint is soaked up in it. You're going to go to the stencil and sponge it in. This method is by far the most efficient and it looks the cleanest as long as you don't have too much paint on your sponge. You just want to do a bunch of really thin layers of paint. It's really important to push hard into the corners and the small spaces, but you have to make sure you don't have too much paint on your sponge. Alright, as we lift up our stencil, we see that the sponge method looks the best, but we still need to go back with a paintbrush and fill in the letters. And also, I'm going to go back with tan and fix up the B to make it look cleaner. Now that we're done with that, we need to decide what further decorations we want to add. We need to decide if we want to leave the letters unoutlined like these examples. Or we can outline our letters like these examples. Another option is to shadow the letters. Or you can go really crazy and outline and shadow. And to shadow, it's just really easy. You just follow the same rule for all the letters, and on some of these you just always go to the bottom and to the right of the letter, or you can go to the top and the right, but just be consistent. Also, to add variety, you can decorate the letters. Like in the first example, we put gems inside of the letters, or you can also add designs inside of the letters, or just little symbols. And also, don't be afraid to overlap your letters, especially if they're large, but then you can just go back and define the letters by outlining them.